They planned to toss me into a retirement home and turn my paid-off house into a content studio. But they forgot one thing. My name is on the deed, and I'm not going down without a fight. Top subscribe if you want to see a boomer dismantle a gold digger's entire life. My name is Eleanor, and at 68 years old, I've become a ghost in my own home. Not the haunting kind, unfortunately. If I were, I might actually get some respect. I'm the kind of ghost that pays the utility bills, stocks the fridge, and scrubs the toilets while the living pretend I don't exist until they need something. It's been 3 years since my son, Jason, and his wife, Brittany, moved into my colonial-style house in the suburbs of Chicago. It was supposed to be a temporary arrangement. Just until Jason's startup takes off, they said. We'll help you with the upkeep, they promised. What a load of garbage. From the moment Brittany unloaded her 10 suitcases of designer knockoffs in my hallway, the dynamic shifted. She didn't move in as a guest. She moved in as a conqueror. Brittany is 28, obsessed with her personal brand, and has the emotional depth of a puddle. She spends her days filming lifestyle content for her 3,000 followers, usually acting like she owns the place. I'm just the unpaid staff. I've heard her on the phone with her friends referring to me as the roommate or the ancient one. She thinks I'm deaf, but I hear everything. The final straw started on a rainy Tuesday morning. I was in the kitchen, quietly nursing my coffee and trying to enjoy the only peaceful hour I get before her ladyship wakes up. But at 10 a.m. sharp, Brittany stomped into the kitchen, phone in hand, recording a story. She didn't even say good morning. She just panned the camera around my kitchen, with the oak cabinets I picked out with my late husband 30 years ago, and made a face. So guys, we are literally dying to renovate this space. It's giving dungeon vibes. We need open concept, we need white marble, we need to bring this into the 21st century. She stopped recording and her smile instantly dropped. She looked at me like I was a stain on the countertop. Eleanor, move your coffee. You're ruining the aesthetic. I didn't move. I took a slow sip, staring her down. Good morning to you too, Brittany. And no, we are not renovating the kitchen. The cabinets are solid oak. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. Oak is out, Eleanor. It's tacky. Besides, Jason agrees with me. Speaking of Jason, she pulled out a chair and sat down, not to chat, but to deliver orders. We need to talk about the living arrangements. This whole setup isn't working for my mental health. I almost laughed. Her mental health? She sleeps until noon, goes to Pilates, and buys overpriced lattes with my son's credit card. I agree, I said, putting my mug down. I think it's time you two looked for your own apartment. Jason's business is doing better, isn't it? Brittany let out a sharp, condescending laugh. Oh, honey, no. We aren't leaving. You are. The air left the room. I stared at her, trying to process the sheer audacity. Excuse me? Look, this house is huge, and you're just one person. It's wasteful. Jason and I need the space. We need the master suite for the lighting, and I need the guest rooms for my office and a walk-in closet. We were thinking, there's that nice assisted living facility on the other side of town, the Shady Pines or whatever. It's more your speed. Bingo nights, soft food, people your own age. She was evicting me. She was actually trying to kick me out of the house I had built, paid for, and maintained for 4 decades, the house where I raised my son. Does Jason know about this plan? I asked, my voice trembling, not with fear, but with a rage so hot it felt like heartburn. Jason does whatever I tell him to do, she smirked, leaning forward. You know you're getting too old to manage this place. It's embarrassing, really. But clutter, the old furniture, it's holding us back. We have a vision for this property, Eleanor, and you're just in the way. At that moment, Jason walked in, looking disheveled and glued to his laptop. Hey, babe. Hey, Mom, he mumbled, reaching for the coffee pot. Jason, I said sharply, your wife just suggested I move into a nursing home so she can turn my bedroom into a closet. Care to explain? Jason froze. He looked at Brittany, who shot him a warning glare, a look that said, back me up or else. He shrank. My tall, handsome boy, who used to defend me against anyone, suddenly looked like a scared child. Well, Mom, he started, scratching the back of his neck, refusing to meet my eyes. We have been talking. The house is a lot of work for you, and Brittany really needs the space for her career. It might be safer for you somewhere else. We're just thinking about your well-being. My well-being. They wanted to steal my asset, dumping me in a facility to rot while they played house in my sanctuary. I looked at Brittany's triumphant smirk. She thought she had won. She thought I was just a feeble old lady who would roll over and die to make them happy. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I took a deep breath, forcing a mask of defeat onto my face. I see, I whispered, looking down at my hands. Maybe you're right. I am getting older. Brittany clapped her hands, squealing. See, I told you she'd get it, Jason. It's for the best. We can start packing your boxes tomorrow. I just need some time to process, I said softly, standing up and shuffling towards the hallway like the frail old woman they thought I was. I'm going to my room. Take your time, Brittany called out, already typing on her phone, probably picking out paint colors for my bedroom. I closed my bedroom door and locked it. I walked over to the mirror. The defeated posture vanished. I stood up straight, my eyes clear and sharp. They wanted a war? They just got one. They thought they were taking my house? They were about to learn that you never ever bite the hand that feeds you, especially when that hand holds the deed, the bank accounts, and secrets they didn't even know existed. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and dialed the one number I hadn't used in years. It was time to call my lawyer. I hung up the phone with Mr. Steinberg, my estate attorney of 20 years, and let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding since the morning. Steinberg had been appalled, naturally, but he also gave me the confirmation I needed. The house was in a living trust. I was the sole trustee. Unless I signed on the dotted line, Jason and Brittany couldn't even paint a wall, let alone kick me out. But they didn't know that. They thought I was just a senile old woman who kept her cash in a mattress and didn't understand how modern finance worked. I decided right then and there to lean into the role. If they wanted a helpless old lady, I'd give them an Oscar-worthy performance. I shuffled back out to the living room, making sure to drag my feet a little. Brittany was already on the sofa, scrolling through her iPad with a glass of my expensive Chardonnay in her hand. She didn't even look up when I entered. She was too busy pinning images to a Pinterest board titled Master Suite Reno. I caught a glimpse of white marble, gold fixtures, and a bathtub that probably cost more than my first car. I called the facility, Brittany said, her eyes still glued to the screen. They have an opening next week. It's perfect timing, really. My contractor can start demolition the Monday after you leave. Demolition? The word made my stomach turn. They weren't just going to paint. They were going to gut my home. Next week? I asked, making my voice wobble. That's so soon, dear. I haven't even packed my knickknacks. Oh, don't worry about that junk, she waved her hand dismissively. We can hire movers to box it up. Or honestly, Eleanor, you should treat this as a chance to declutter. You don't need all this stuff in a small room. It's just hoarding at this point. Jason walked in then, looking more stressed than I'd ever seen him. He was carrying a stack of mail, and the moment he saw me, he tried to shove the envelopes into his back pocket. It was a clumsy move, completely lacking subtlety. My mother intuition, or maybe just my eyes, cut the red stamp on the top envelope before it disappeared. Final notice. Hey, Mom, Jason said, his voice tight. Everything okay? Brittany says I have to leave next week, I said, looking at him with wide, watery eyes. Am I really that much of a burden? He winced. For a second, I saw the boy I raised fighting to come out. He looked at Brittany, then back at me. It's not about being a burden, Mom. It's just logistically, this makes sense. Brittany's brand is taking off, and we need the equity in the house to. Jason, Brittany snapped, her head whipping around. Shut up. Equity? I asked, feigning ignorance. What does that mean, dear? Brittany stood up, smoothing down her athletic wear. She walked over to me and placed a hand on my shoulder. It felt cold. Don't you worry your pretty little head about finances, Eleanor. Jason just means we want to make sure the house is put to good use. Actually, since we're talking about it, we have some paperwork for you to look at. Just standard stuff to transfer the utility bills and get the nursing home application sorted. She pulled a folder from her bag and laid it on the coffee table. I sat down and put on my reading glasses, my hands shaking intentionally. The document on top was indeed a nursing home application, but underneath, peeking out just barely, was a quick claim deed. They weren't just kicking me out. They were trying to trick me into signing the title of the house over to them. They wanted full ownership. I just sign here? I asked, hovering my pen over the nursing home form. And the one underneath, Jason added quickly, sweat beading on his forehead. It just gives us permission to handle the contractors while you're gone. I looked at the quick claim deed. I knew exactly what it was. If I signed that, I was homeless and penniless. I looked up at Jason. He was my son. I wiped his nose, paid for his college, helped him buy his first car. And here he was, sweating through his shirt, trying to con me out of my life's work because his high-maintenance wife wanted a spa bathroom. I think my arthritis is acting up, I said, dropping the pen. I can't grip it properly today. I'll have to sign these tomorrow morning when my hands are fresh. Brittany's face fell. Eleanor, it takes 2 seconds. Just scribble it. I can't, dear. It hurts too much. I whined, rubbing my knuckles. I'm going to go lie down. All this excitement has worn me out. I left them in the living room. As I walked away, I heard Brittany hiss. We need that deed signed by Friday, Jason. The loan sharks are not going to wait. I froze in the hallway. Loan sharks? It was worse than I thought. They weren't just in debt to banks. They were in debt to dangerous people. I went into my room and locked the door. I didn't go to sleep. Instead, I waited until 2 a.m. when the house was silent. I crept out of my room and tiptoed into the home office Jason had set up in the den. I needed proof. I needed to know exactly how deep of a hole they had dug themselves into, so when I buried them, I could make sure they never climbed out. I booted up Jason's laptop. He never changed his password. It was still Steelers1. I logged into his email and started digging. What I found was a disaster. Maxed out credit cards, impulsive crypto investments that had crashed to zero, and threatening emails from a consultancy firm that sounded incredibly shady. But then I found the smoking gun, an email thread between Brittany and a real estate agent. They weren't planning to renovate and live here. The renovations were just to stage the house. They were planning to flip it. They intended to dump me in a home, get the deed, do a cosmetic remodel, sell my house for a profit to pay off their debts, and move to LA so Brittany could be a full-time creator. I took photos of every screen with my phone. I felt a cold, hard resolve settle in my chest. They wanted to play games? Fine. But they forgot that I taught Jason how to play Monopoly, and I never let him win out of pity. I wasn't going to start now. Tomorrow, I would start phase 1 of my counterattack. I was going to make their lives a living hell, and they would thank me for it, right up until the moment I pulled the rug out from under them. The next morning, I woke up with the energy of a woman half my age. Knowing that my son and his wife were essentially planning to sell me down the river to pay off their gambling debts and failed crypto bros' aspirations gave me a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't just fighting for my house anymore. I was fighting for my dignity. I walked into the kitchen at 8 a.m., humming a little tune, and found the house in chaos. Brittany was setting up a ring light and a tripod in the middle of the breakfast nook. She was wearing a matching beige workout set that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She looked stressed, frantically adjusting her hair in her phone camera. "Quiet on set, Eleanor," she barked without looking at me. "I'm doing a sponsored live stream for Fit Tea in 5 minutes. I need absolute silence. Go sit on the porch or something." "Of course, dear," I said, my voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I'll just be dusting." I waited until she was fully live, putting on her best fake smile for her fam. "Hey guys, it's your girl Britt. So today we're talking about detoxing, not just your body, but your life," she chirped, holding up a tea packet. That was my cue. I grabbed the loudest, clunkiest appliance I owned, an ancient industrial vacuum cleaner I kept in the utility closet. I plugged it in right behind the kitchen island, just out of frame, but close enough to be deafening. Vroom! The sound was like a jet engine taking off inside the house. Brittany's eyes went wide. She tried to yell over the noise. So, like I was saying, I ramped it up, banging the vacuum against the baseboards rhythmically. Thump, thump, thump. Then I started muttering loudly to myself, just loud enough for her microphone to pick up. "Oh Lord, the roaches are back. Look at the size of that one. Jason, get the spray." Brittany's face turned a shade of crimson I'd never seen before. She scrambled to mute the stream, but the chat was already blowing up. I could see the comments scrolling on her iPad screen. "Roaches? Ew. Lol. Is that her maid? Unsubscribing. That's nasty." She cut the feed and whipped around, screaming, "Are you insane? You just ruined a $500 brand deal. Roaches? Seriously?" I turned off the vacuum, feigning innocence. "Oh, I'm sorry, sweetie. I thought I saw one. You know, with all the boxes you brought in, you can never be too careful. Pests love cardboard." Before she could explode further, Jason came rushing in, his phone pressed to his ear. He looked pale, like he was about to throw up. He hung up and looked at us. "What is going on? I can hear the screaming from the driveway." "Your mother is sabotaging me," Brittany shrieked, storming off toward the bedroom. "Fix this, Jason. Get that paper signed now." Jason turned to me, wiping sweat from his upper lip. "Mom, please, we don't have time for games. Did you sign the papers? The deed? We need to get this file today." I walked over to the counter and poured myself a cup of coffee, taking my sweet time. "About that, Jason. I tried to sign it last night, but I started reading the fine print. You know how my eyes are. It was all very legal sounding, so I decided to be safe." Jason's eyes lit up with hope. "So, you signed it?" "No," I said, taking a sip. "I mailed it to my old friend Gladys. You remember Gladys? Her son is a paralegal or notary or something. I just wanted him to double check that I filled it out right. I didn't want to mess up your big renovation plans." Jason looked like he'd been punched in the gut. You mailed it? To Gladys? Mom, Gladys lives in Florida. That's going to take days to get there and come back." "Oh, don't worry," I patted his arm. "I used regular mail to save money. It should be there by next week." "Next week?" Jason shouted, his voice cracking. "Mom, we need that deed today. Why didn't you just ask me?" "I didn't want to bother you, dear. You seem so busy with your business." I emphasized the word business with a confused look. "Is it a problem? The nursing home said they could hold the spot for a few days." "It's a huge problem." He was pacing now, running his hands through his hair. I knew exactly why. The loan sharks, or whoever he owed money to, had probably given him a hard deadline of Friday. Sending the deed away bought me time, but more importantly, it forced their hand. "Well, I can't unmail it," I said simply. "But while we wait, I had another thought. If we are going to transfer the house, We should really fix that leak in the basement. Jason stopped pacing. There is no leak in the basement. Oh, there is. I heard dripping last night, and a strange scratching sound. I think it might be rats, or maybe structural damage. You know, if the foundation is cracked, the city won't let you get permits for your renovation. I called a guy to come look at it. You called a guy? Who? Just a nice man from the Yellow Pages. He's coming tomorrow at noon to do a full inspection. He said if he finds mold, we might have to quarantine the house. Jason looked terrified. If an inspector found mold, which I intended to fake with some black paint and a spray bottle that afternoon, the house would be unsaleable until it was remediated. That would cost thousands, money they didn't have. Cancel it, Jason snapped. We don't need an inspection. Mom, you're making this impossible. I'm trying to help, I exclaimed, putting a hand to my chest in mock offense. I want your new studio to be safe. Imagine if Brittany was filming and the floor collapsed. It would be a tragedy. Jason didn't answer. His phone buzzed again. He looked at the screen and the color drained from his face completely. He rejected the call instantly. Who was that, honey? I asked. No one, he muttered, backing out of the kitchen. I have to go. I have to figure something out. Do not let anyone enter this house, Mom. No inspectors, no Gladys. Just sit there and watch TV. He ran out the front door to his car. I watched through the window as he sat in the driver's seat, frantically typing on his phone, looking over his shoulder. He was trapped. He couldn't kick me out without the deed. He couldn't get the deed because it was in the mail. And now he was terrified that the house was falling apart. I finished my coffee and smiled. Step 1 was complete. Confusion and delay. Now it was time for step 2. I needed to make sure that when the inspector, which was actually my very large, very intimidating nephew from my sister's side, whom Jason hadn't seen since he was 5, arrived tomorrow at noon, he found exactly what I wanted him to find. Brittany wanted a renovation? I was going to give her a condemnation order. My nephew, Big Mike, isn't actually a building inspector. He's a retired bouncer who now runs a dog grooming business, but he owns a clipboard, a hard hat, and looks like he eats concrete for breakfast. I called him because I knew Jason hadn't seen him in 20 years and wouldn't recognize the burly man standing on our porch at noon the next day. Mike was perfect for the role. Intimidating, loud, and completely on my side. Jason was out meeting investors, begging for extensions on his loans, no doubt, leaving me alone with Brittany. She was in the living room, aggressively typing on her laptop, probably trying to do damage control for the roach incident yesterday. When the doorbell rang, she jumped. "Who was that?" she snapped. "That must be the inspector," I said calmly, opening the door before she could protest. Big Mike stepped in. He filled the entire doorway. He was wearing a high-vis vest and holding a flashlight that looked more like a police baton. "Afternoon, ma'am. Here for the structural assessment." His voice was a deep rumble that vibrated the floorboards. Brittany scrambled off the couch. "We didn't order an inspection. Jason said no inspectors." Mike ignored her and looked at me. "Ma'am, I got a report of potential foundation shifts and black mold. I'm legally obligated to check it out. City Ordinance 404. Unless you want me to red tag the door right now." Brittany paled. "Red tag? Does that mean we can't stay here?" "Means nobody stays here until it's cleared," Mike grunted, clicking his flashlight on. "I'll start in the basement." I watched with glee as Brittany followed him, wringing her hands. I'd spent the previous afternoon preparing the basement. I'd splashed some watered-down black acrylic paint in the corners and loosened a few pipes so they dripped rhythmically into metal buckets. Plink, plink, plink. Mike went down the stairs, heavy boots clomping. He shone his light into the corner I'd painted. "Whoa, mama, look at that." Brittany peered over his shoulder and gasped. Is that toxic? Could be stachybotrys, also known as the widowmaker. And look at this pipe. He rattled the loose pipe I'd set up. It groaned and shook the whole ceiling. Plumbing shot. Foundation shifting. You can tell by the angle of the dangle. He made that last part up, but Brittany nodded furiously, terrified. How much to fix it? She asked, her voice trembling. Mike scratched his chin with his pen. To bring this up to code, you're looking at 50, maybe 60,000 cash, and you gotta vacate for 3 months during the chemical scrub. Brittany looked like she was going to faint. 60,000? We can't. She pulled out her phone and started dialing Jason. Jason, you need to get home right now. The house is toxic. It's gonna kill us. She shrieked into the phone. Mike winked at me when she turned her back. I stifled a giggle. Jason arrived 20 minutes later, tires screeching in the driveway. He burst into the basement looking wild-eyed. What is going on? Who is this guy? City inspector, Mike said, handing Jason a fake citation slip he'd printed off his computer. You got mold, rot, and structural fatigue. I'm gonna have to file a report. This place is a money pit, son. You try to flip this, you'll be sued into oblivion. Jason stared at the paper. His hands were shaking. This can't be right. The inspection when we moved in was fine. Things change fast, Mike said, shrugging. Look, I can hold off on filing the official condemnation order for 48 hours, give you a chance to make arrangements. But this house, it's worthless as an asset right now. It's a liability. Mike tipped his hard hat and marched out, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. Jason slumped against the wall, sliding down until he hit the floor. He put his head in his hands and whispered, It's over. The collateral is worthless. They're going to kill me. Brittany was pacing, hysterical. We can't sell it. Then how do we pay them back, Jason? They know where we live. I stepped forward, playing the confused old lady again. Pay who back, dear? Is there something wrong with the bank? Jason looked up at me, his eyes red and desperate. The facade was cracking. He couldn't keep up the lie anymore. It's not the bank, Mom. It's private investors. I borrowed money, a lot of money, to leverage into crypto. It's gone, all of it. And I put the house as a guarantee. I asked, dropping the sweet voice just a fraction. I thought I could sell it before they found out the deed wasn't in my name yet, Jason confessed, sobbing. I needed you to sign it over so I could liquidate it immediately. But now, if the house is condemned, it's worth nothing. They're gonna come for me. And me, Brittany wailed. They threatened to break my legs, Jason. My legs are my best feature. I looked at them. 2 selfish, greedy children who had gambled with my legacy and lost. They were terrified, broke, and cornered. It was time to twist the knife. Well, I said slowly, that does sound like a pickle, but I might have a solution. They both looked at me, hope flickering in their eyes like a dying candle. What? What can you do? You don't have that kind of money. I don't. I lied. I did. I had a retirement fund they knew nothing about, but they weren't touching a dime of it. But I do have a friend, a wealthy friend who buys distressed properties. He might be willing to buy the house, even in this condition. He pays cash. Really? Brittany gasped. Who? Mr. Steinberg. He's been looking for a fixer-upper. But there's a catch. He'll only buy it if I'm the one selling it, and he'll only pay enough to cover your debt if you agree to my terms. Jason stood up. Anything, Mom, anything. Just get us the money. First, I said, my voice turning steel hard, you pack your bags tonight.
you leave this house and you don't come back until I say so. Second, you sign a document admitting to the dead and stating you have no claim to this property ever. But where will we go? Brittany whined. I hear the Motel 6 on the highway has weekly rates. Take it or leave it. Or you can wait for your investors to show up. Jason looked at Brittany. Then he looked at the fake citation slip. He nodded, defeated. We'll do it. Call him. I smiled. I wasn't calling anyone to buy the house. I was calling Mr. Steinberg to draw up a contract that would legally bind them to their confession and strip them of any future inheritance claims, essentially disowning themselves to save their skins. I was buying my own house back from their incompetence, and they were going to thank me for it. But the best part? They still didn't know about the mold being paint.
The exodus began at 4 p.m., and it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. The house, usually filled with the sound of Brittany's vocal fry and Jason's stress pacing, was now filled with the chaotic noise of defeat. They were scrambling to pack their lives into Jason's leased Audi and Brittany's white Jeep, realizing too late that a luxury lifestyle doesn't fit into compact SUVs. I sat on the front porch swing, a glass of iced tea in my hand, watching the show. Brittany came stumbling out the front door carrying an armful of designer shoe boxes, tears streaming down her face, ruining her spray tan. "This is abuse, Jason," she wailed, dropping a pair of Louboutins on the driveway. "We are literally homeless. How am I supposed to create content from a motel? The lighting is going to be tragic." "Just get in the car, Britt," Jason snapped, shoving a suitcase into the trunk with more force than necessary. He looked 10 years older than he had yesterday. "We have to meet the guy at the bank to wire the money before 5 o'clock. If we miss the deadline, we're dead. Literally." Mr. Steinberg, my attorney, had arrived an hour earlier with the paperwork. He played his part perfectly. He wore his most expensive suit and carried a briefcase that looked like it held nuclear codes. He sat at my dining room table and laid out the documents, the Emergency Asset Liquidation Agreement. It was a masterpiece of legal entrapment. In exchange for a check of $85,000, enough to pay off the loan sharks and the interest, Jason and Brittany had to sign away absolutely everything. They waived their rights to live in the property, they waived any future claim to the estate, and they acknowledged that they had received their inheritance early and in full. Essentially, I was buying my son's life, but the price was his future access to my wallet. I remember the way Jason's hand shook as he signed the papers. He didn't even read them. He was so terrified of the people he owed money to that he would have signed a contract selling his kidney. Brittany signed too, sniffling about how unfair it was that she wasn't getting a severance package from the house sale. "The buyer is very generous to expedite this funds transfer, but the condition is immediate vacancy. Keys on the table, now." They had handed over their keys. That was the moment the reality hit them. They weren't just leaving, they were being exiled. Now, watching them struggle in the driveway, I felt a twinge of sadness, not for what I was doing, that was necessary, but for who my son had become. He was a grown man who had let greed and a vapid partner drive him to the brink of ruin. He needed to hit rock bottom, and I was the one cutting the parachute. "Mom," Jason walked up to the porch, avoiding my eyes. "We're leaving. We're going to the Motel 6 off I-95. It's temporary. Once we get back on our feet." "Drive safe, Jason." I cut him off. I didn't offer them money for the room. I didn't offer them dinner. "Make sure you pay those bad men immediately. You don't want them coming looking for you at the motel." He flinched. "Yeah, I know. Goodbye, Mom." He didn't say, "I love you." He just turned around, got into his car, and drove away.
Brittany followed, her Jeep bottoming out at the end of the driveway because she had packed too much heavy gym equipment. I watched until their taillights disappeared around the corner. Silence. Delicious, heavy, golden silence. I sat there for another 10 minutes, just breathing it in. No content creation noise, no demands for coffee, no condescending remarks about my decor. The house was mine again. I stood up and walked back inside. Mr. Steinberg was still in the kitchen packing up his briefcase. He looked at me and finally cracked a smile. "That was intense, Eleanor," he said. "You know, in 40 years of law, I've never seen a parent go this hard." "They were going to sell my house out from under me, Saul," I replied, pouring 2 glasses of wine. "They were going to put me in a home. I just beat them to the punch." "The check you gave them cleared out your retirement savings account," he reminded me gently. "You're cash poor right now." "I have my pension," I shrugged, "and I have my house. And most importantly, I have my peace. Money comes and goes, Saul. Dignity is harder to buy back." He nodded, took a sip of wine, and left. Once I was truly alone, I went down to the basement. I looked at the black mold on the wall, the acrylic paint I had splashed there 2 days ago. I picked up a bucket of warm soapy water and a sponge. I started scrubbing. It came off easily. Beneath the black smear, the concrete was clean and dry. The leak was just a bucket of water I'd poured on the floor. The loose pipe just needed a single turn of a wrench to tighten. In 20 minutes, the condemned basement was perfectly fine. I went upstairs and walked into the master suite, the room they had kicked me out of 3 years ago. It smelled like Brittany's cheap vanilla perfume and desperation. I ripped the sheets off the bed. I opened the windows to let the fresh evening breeze blow through. I walked into the closet and saw that they had left behind a few things: a ring light, some fit tea boxes, and a stack of unpaid parking tickets. I swept it all into a trash bag. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Jason. "Loan is paid. We are safe. Motel is disgusting. There is a stain on the carpet that looks like blood. Can you Venmo us $50 for pizza? We have no cash left." I looked at the message. The old Eleanor would have sent the money. The old Eleanor would have felt guilty that her son was sleeping in a dive motel. But the old Eleanor was dead. She died the day they tried to trick me into a nursing home. I typed back, "You have a wife who is a content creator, and you're an entrepreneur. I'm sure you can hustle up a pepperoni pizza. Welcome to the real world, Jason." I blocked his number. Then I blocked Brittany's. I went to the kitchen, made myself a simple grilled cheese sandwich using the expensive artisan bread Brittany had bought and told me not to touch, and sat in the middle of my living room. But the game wasn't quite over. I knew them. They were cockroaches. Once the fear of the loan sharks faded, the entitlement would creep back in. They would wonder who bought the house. They would wonder why Mr. Steinberg's client hadn't started demolition yet. They would come back to snoop. And when they did, I wanted the house to look spectacular. I wanted them to see exactly what they had thrown away. I picked up the phone and dialed my painter. "Hey, remember how you said the exterior needed a fresh coat? Can you start tomorrow? And I want to do the landscaping too. I want this place to look like $1,000,000 by the weekend." If they were going to be miserable in a motel, I was going to make sure my life looked like paradise. The best revenge isn't just surviving, it's thriving so loudly that your enemies can't sleep at night.
2 weeks later, my house looked like it belonged on the cover of Better Homes and Gardens. I'd spent a decent chunk of my pension on fresh landscaping, new mulch, bright hydrangeas, and the exterior painted a crisp, clean slate blue. It was the facelift the old girl needed, and frankly, so did I. Inside, the studio was gone. I'd turned that room into a sewing library, reclaiming every square inch of space Brittany had tried to colonize with her ring lights and green screens. I was sitting on the porch swing, sipping an iced tea and reading a mystery novel when a beat-up Honda Civic sputtered into the driveway. It wasn't Jason's Audi. I guess the lease payments had finally caught up with him. The doors opened and out stepped the refugees of the Motel 6. They looked rough. Jason hadn't shaved in days, and his entrepreneur suit was wrinkled and stained. Brittany, usually perfectly polished, was wearing sweatpants that had seen better days, her roots showing, her fake tan patchy. They stared at the house, jaws on the floor. They walked up the driveway slowly, like they were approaching a mirage. I didn't get up. I just turned a page in my book. "Mom?" Jason called out, his voice raspy. He squinted at the house, then at me. What are you doing here? I thought the investor took possession last week." "He did," I said, not looking up. "Then why are you here?" Brittany snapped, her old entitlement flaring up despite her disheveled appearance. "Is he hiring you as the maid? Is he letting you stay in the servants' quarters?" She looked around, eyeing the fresh paint. "And why did he paint it blue? It's not giving luxury flip at all." I finally closed my book and set it on the table. I looked them over with a cool, detached amusement. The owner likes blue, and no, I'm not the maid. "So where is he?" Jason asked, walking up the steps. "We need to talk to him. We think we made a mistake. We've been talking to a lawyer, well, a guy on Reddit, and he said we might have signed under duress. We want to see if we can buy it back once our new business idea launches next month." "Yeah," Brittany chimed in, crossing her arms. "We're pivoting to crypto gaming. It's going to be huge. We just need him to lease us the house back for a few months. The motel Wi-Fi is trash. I can't stream." I let out a laugh. It was a genuine, belly-deep laugh that startled the birds in the trees. "You want to buy it back? With what money? The monopoly money you're going to make from your video games?" "It's an investment," Jason yelled, his face turning red. "Just get the guy, Mom. Stop stalling." "You're looking at him," I said calmly. Silence. Absolute confused silence. "What?" Brittany scrunched her nose. "But you? But Mr. Steinberg said an investor bought the debt." "Mr. Steinberg represents the Eleanor Living Trust. I am the sole beneficiary of that trust. I bought the debt. I paid off your loan sharks with my retirement savings to save your lives, and in exchange, you signed the house and your inheritance over to the trust, which means legally I own everything, free and clear. And you two own, well, nothing." Jason's face went white. "But the money, the check, was from my account," I smiled. "I essentially paid a ransom for your stupidity, and the price was my house back." "But the mold," Brittany shrieked, pointing to the basement window. "The house is condemned. It's toxic. You can't live here. You'll die." "Oh, the mold," I chuckled. "You mean the 50-cent bottle of black acrylic paint from the craft store? I scrubbed that off with a sponge daddy in about 10 minutes. And the structural leak was a bucket of water I poured on the floor." The realization hit them like a freight train. I watched the gears turn in Jason's head as he processed the betrayal. He realized that his frail, out-of-touch mother had outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and completely owned him. You lied to us," Jason whispered, his voice trembling with rage. "You manipulated us." "I manipulated you?" I stood up, my voice dropping an octave, losing all warmth. "You tried to put me in a nursing home, Jason. You tried to sell my home to pay for your gambling debts. You treated me like a servant in the house I raised you in. I didn't manipulate you. I educated you. Consider this your final lesson in adulthood. If you come for the queen, you better not miss." "This is illegal," Brittany screamed, stomping her foot. "I'm calling the police. This is fraud." "Go ahead," I challenged her, picking up my phone and holding it out to her.
Call them. Show them the papers you signed. Show them the mold that doesn't exist. Tell them you trespassed on private property to harass the owner. Mr. Steinberg made sure that contract was bulletproof. You waived all rights. You are technically trespassing right now. Jason grabbed Brittany's arm as she reached for the phone. Don't, he muttered, defeated. She's right. Steinberg is a shark. We signed it all away. Get off my property, I said, sitting back down and picking up my iced tea. And don't come back. If I see that Civic in my driveway again, I'm calling the cops. And I won't be as nice as I was today. Mom, please, Jason pleaded, tears welling up in his eyes. We have nowhere to go. The motel kicks us out tomorrow. We're broke. I hear they're hiring at the Amazon warehouse 3 towns over. Good benefits, hard work, might build some character. You should try it. They stood there for another minute, waiting for me to crack, waiting for the mother who used to fix everything to reappear. But she was gone. They had killed her. Finally, Jason hung his head. He dragged Brittany, who was sobbing about her trauma, back to the car. They got in, the engine coughed to life, and they reversed out of the driveway. I watched them go. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel sadness. I felt lighter. The parasites were gone. The house was quiet. The hydrangeas were blooming. I took a sip of my tea. It tasted sweet. I was 68 years old. I had 0 debt, a beautiful home, and for the first time in years, the remote control was all mine.